Welcome to The Explainer. Right off the bat today, we are diving into a really fascinating and honestly super practical concept detailed by the YouTube channel Bible Haven. The core premise we're looking at is that your home, well, it's far more than just physical walls, a roof, and some furniture. According to this source, your home is your energy. It's your peace. It fundamentally represents your family's future. It's a sacred space, right? And protecting it is absolutely paramount. But protecting it from what exactly?
And that brings us to this crucial question. Who are you letting inside your sanctuary? Because, we usually think of protecting our homes in terms of alarm systems, deadbolts, and keeping total strangers out. But the source makes a really compelling and honestly kind of startling claim. The biggest threats to your home's peace and future, they're usually not strangers or obvious enemies. The biggest threats are actually the guests you willingly invite inside.
So, Section 1. The invited threat. Examining the true cost of open doors. Okay, let's dive into this. Our first archetype is the sweet trap, the danger of unearned praise. The source points out that ancient biblical texts warned us thousands of years ago about 3 specific types of people who can just absolutely destroy a household's peace, starting with the flatterer. And let's be real, you likely know someone exactly like this. Every single time you see them, they are speaking so sweetly. They're constantly complimenting you, praising you, telling you exactly what you want to hear. But Bible Haven warns that a person who literally never challenges you, who never disagrees, and who never corrects your mistakes, they aren't actually helping you grow. They are simply keeping you comfortable and distracted, which effectively keeps the door wide open for their own benefit.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core deception of the flatterer. On the left side, we see what flattery feels like, right? It feels like love. It feels like support. An immense comfort. It feels great. But then on the right side, we see the source's reality of what flattery actually is. It's manipulation wearing the face of love. It is entirely self-serving. To really drive this point home, the source draws a super heavy comparison, noting that in the Bible, Judas didn't betray Jesus with a punch, right? He did it with a kiss. Sometimes the sweetest people in the room are for sure the most dangerous. The creator actually roots this entire concept in ancient wisdom, specifically Proverbs 29:5, which states, "Whoever flatters his neighbor is spreading a net for his feet." Think about that. The lack of honest feedback isn't friendship at all. It's a net. It's a literal trap designed to trip you up. If someone in your life has never once told you a hard truth, the source argues they really don't belong in your inner sanctuary.
Moving right along, we have the chaos bringer. The visible disruption of peace.
This source defines this second archetype as the contentious person. And wow, we all probably have that one relative popping into our heads right now. If the flatterer is sweet and agreeable, this individual brings loud, undeniable tension into your household. They are restless, they're always stirring up drama, and somehow a disagreement always seems to kick off shortly after they walk through your door. The real danger here, according to the explainer, is that conflict is highly contagious. When this person is in your space, they make the whole house feel incredibly heavy. It's a tension that your spouse and your kids just absorb, and one that often lingers way after the person is finally left.
To explain the actual mechanics of this, the source points to Proverbs 26:21. A contentious person is like charcoal to embers and wood to fire. What's so fascinating about this analogy is that it highlights how these individuals don't even necessarily need to be the ones actively starting the argument. Their mere presence is the fuel. They just walk into a room and somehow the fire of conflict erupts.
Now here is where the source takes a particularly tough, uncompromising stance. What happens when that chaos bringer is your parent, your sibling, or your cousin? We so often keep inviting them back out of pure guilt, but the source states it super clearly. Wisdom doesn't have exceptions for blood. Keeping a highly contentious family member out of your sacred space isn't an act of cruel rejection, it's an act of stewardship. The source argues you are entirely responsible for the atmosphere of your home, and you just cannot build peace if you constantly allow chaos to walk right through the front door.
So the crucial point is, we've reached the third archetype, the quiet corrupter, the most insidious threat.
While the first 2 types of people are serious threats, they're actually relatively easy to spot, right? The flatterer is too sweet, and the contentious person is way too loud. But the source defines this final archetype as the morally corrupt person, warning that this is the one most people never see coming until the damage is already done. This person isn't trying to fight you, and they certainly aren't trying to flatter you. In fact, they are often incredibly charming, fun, and they make you feel totally alive. But by just living differently and bringing that lifestyle into your home, they slowly normalize behaviors that go against your core values. Because they're fun and totally non-confrontational, it becomes incredibly hard to realize that they are actively shifting the moral culture of your sanctuary.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because the source outlines a sequential erosion of your boundaries. It happens in a gradual fade. First, you start laughing at things you used to be deeply uncomfortable with. Then, you find yourself tolerating conversations at your own dinner table that used to bother you. Finally, you're lowering your standards little by little. This person's mere presence in your home, around your family, subtly changes your baseline for what is considered normal.
The source anchors this insidious process in 1 Corinthians 15:33. Bad company corrupts good character. The explainer points out something very specific here, the tense of the word corrupts. Notice it doesn't say bad company might corrupt or could corrupt. It's present tense. It is a guaranteed outcome. The morally corrupt person doesn't even have to speak out against your values. Their continued presence simply guarantees a slow decay of the character and culture you've worked so hard to build in your home.
Which brings us to the source's conclusion: guarding your sanctuary, boundary setting as an act of love.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it frames the whole concept. Often, cutting people off or setting strict boundaries can feel harsh, cold, or even cruel, but the source brilliantly reframes this. Boundary setting isn't about being mean at all. It is fundamentally an act of love and protection for the vulnerable people who are already inside your home, your spouse, your children, and your own spirit. Look at how beautifully these archetypes operate and the specific damage they do in this rule of three. The flatterer uses sweet manipulation to steal your discernment. The contentious person uses constant drama to steal your peace. And the morally corrupt uses slow normalization to steal your values without you even noticing. It is a stark, incredibly clear summary of exactly what is at stake when you leave your doors completely unguarded.
To wrap up this philosophy, the source offers one final piece of biblical grounding from Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. The creator's perspective here is that your physical home is simply an extension of your heart. It's your heart made physical. Therefore, guarding it isn't just a nice idea, it's a vital necessity. Why? Because everything your family does flows from the atmosphere you allow inside.
And we're going to end today's explainer by echoing the original creator's provocative prompt for self-reflection. Really look at your own life, your own inner circle, and the people you consistently invite into your space. Which of these three people do you need to distance yourself from? Is it the flatterer, the contentious chaos bringer, or maybe that quietly corrupting influence? It's a heavy question for sure, but answering it honestly might just be the key to preserving the peace and the future of your home. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I highly encourage you to take a moment today to evaluate your own boundaries.